Hey everyone, it's me, Christine Joe of Flourish in the Foreign. Yes, Flourish in the Foreign. And you're watching here via Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Hey, hello everyone. I'm so glad you have made the time to sit and chat with me today. So if you don't know about Flourish in the Foreign is a podcast that elevates and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad. And it also explores living abroad as a pathway to wellness. Today, I have a super special guest that we're going to talk all about expat taxes. Yes, I know. You may think that it's not fun, but it's actually very, very important, okay? I have Tanya Munford Pitts today, and let me tell you a little bit about Tanya. So Tanya is the owner and CEO of Expat Tax Solutions. And let me get her bio together. It's all live, guys. All live. Here we go. Tanya Munford Pitts is the founder of Amina Financial Solutions LLC and Expat Tax Solutions, formerly B K Diversified, which has been providing accounting, income tax, and small business consulting services to clients and financial leaders around the world since 2003. Yes, since 2003. So if you're looking for someone who knows what they're talking about, not only with taxes, not only with financial solutions, but particularly for expats and people who have an international and global life, this is the woman. So without further ado, let me bring Tanya to the stage. Hello, Tanya.
Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone out there, and especially to you, Christine. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great. As I told you before we even get started, I'm excited to talk about taxes. And I never thought that I would ever say that in my life, but I'm excited to talk about it because it's nothing like going abroad and wanting to stay, on the right side of the law in multiple jurisdictions. That will make you really interested in taxes so that you are doing the right thing.
Well, I'm glad you're excited. It's been a very tough 2 tax years, or 3 actually, for us in the accounting space. So at least someone can be excited about it.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So let's first start with, you have been an expat. Tell us a little bit about your international experience.
Okay, well, I've always enjoyed traveling. Prior to 2010, I've probably traveled around the United States quite a bit. Went to a couple of places, Cancun, Jamaica, places like that. But I finally got an opportunity in 2010 to travel to Kuwait. I followed my husband there. Actually, he went first, and then I traveled over, went for vacation for about 2 weeks, and I fell in love with it. Now, most people wouldn't fall in love with Kuwait per se, but if you've never been on the eastern side of the world, being in any space initially, it would, make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you would also, kind of be excited about your travels. So I went over and visited him, went home, and I had the travel bug, and I wanted to go back. So he and I decided, and I had a business here in the U.S. He and I decided, well, why don't you come over and, see if, you can do something over in Kuwait. So I went over for maybe about a year, and I worked for a contractor and maintained my business at the same time. So we ended up staying. I brought my family over. They lived there for about 2 years. And while I was there, I worked for a couple of years. And then I also was able to build my global tax business while I was there. So up until about from 2010 through 2013, we lived there. I took my family back in 2013, and I traveled back and forth to Kuwait for about 4 years, managing my tax business. So it was an incredible experience. It's something that I wouldn't trade for the world. There are a lot of challenges, going through that whole process, but that is how I ended up living abroad.
Wow, wow. So tell me, before we get into the taxes, tell me maybe some misconceptions people have about Kuwait.
The Middle East, in an overall picture, of course, everyone thinks of the Middle East as, everyone there is a terrorist, right? So, the United States has, hoodwinked us, made us think that every other country is an issue. But once you get there, the people are very personable. I felt like as a Black American living abroad that I was regarded more, if not, more than I was in the United States. And I have two sons. And so my African American sons, even the men over there, they regarded them as young men and not a boy, because I'm from Georgia. Well, I've been in Georgia long enough to say I'm from Georgia, but I'm in the South, the deep South. And, young African American men or even grown men, I don't care how old they are, they're considered a boy. So, to see that my sons were regarded as humans and young men, for me, that was one of the greatest misconceptions because they think of the Middle Easterns as these horrible people, but they weren't. Some were very personable. Also, at the Middle East, I think one of the other misconceptions was that there's nothing there but desert. And probably once upon a time, I know there was, just a lot of deserted areas. But in Kuwait, they've built up the area quite a bit, especially in the area that we lived in. Um, you know, Tall buildings, just like you have in the United States. Maybe not a lot of color. Everything blends in with the sand. But, they're still, they're advanced, just as advanced as we are in the United States. And I think another misconception was for me, um, that there weren't going to be that there wasn't going to be anyone speaking my native tongue. And, quite a few of them, most of them, they speak English. We're probably one of the few countries that speak one language and, think that's okay. So for me, those were some misconceptions that I thought that people would want to know more about the Middle East. Now, of course, there are some areas where it is true. Women aren't, at the top of the food chain, I guess, if you want to say, but they are. The women are. There's some beautiful women over there. They are very ladylike, and actually, you can actually kind of mimic some of their ideologies if you wanted to. So for me, those three misconceptions were the ones that I think people might be interested in.
All right. All right. That's very, very interesting. I just wanted to take a moment and to welcome everyone who has now joined us. Thank you guys for joining us. I know it might be early in the morning or it might be in the afternoon here, like here. But thank you so much for joining us. I have Tanya Munford Pitts, just an experienced and wonderful tax and finance advisor. Like she knows her stuff. And we are going to get into expat taxes. So do me a favor if you are watching right now, whatever questions you have about expat taxes, doesn't matter how small you think it is or whatever, go ahead and type it in the comment section so that we can answer it and we can get your answers. We can give you some answers, or she can give you some answers, and I can learn. Because no matter what you think, it might be small or stupid or whatever, I'm sure people who are watching live probably have the exact same question, or people who will be watching the replay have the exact same question. So definitely put it in the comments and go ahead and do that. But before we get to those, I do want to talk about wellness because y'all know Flourishing the Foreign is all about living abroad as a pathway to wellness. And it's so fascinating because through this platform, I've gotten to speak to gosh, probably more than 100 Black women right now, which is fantastic. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been such a deep blessing on my life, but it's been so fascinating to speak to Black women about their own definitions of wellness and how living abroad has changed that. So that's what I want to do now with you, Tanya. I'm going to read what you said about your wellness and then we'll discuss it. All right?
Okay,
So
great.
Tanya says, for her, wellness is all about being at peace with where you are in life at this very moment. Change will come if you allow it. However, knowing that I am enough right now is what makes her tick. For her, living abroad had been a very positive, had a very positive effect on her wellness. Her life abroad had a few challenges. However, it gave her the opportunity to do some introspection and shed some light on areas in her life that needed or wanted to change. Um, the distance from the life she once knew opened her eyes, and she knew that if she ever returned to US, it was no longer going to be the same. And now, 3 years back in the US, and it still rings true today. Let's get into that because that is profound, right?
Okay,
That is
yes.
that is
Mhm.
profound. When I tell people about, wellness living abroad, they think it's like real, like I don't know, fluffy stuff. And I'm like, unless you've had this experience, no, it really changes you if you really allow it to. So let's talk
Yes.
about that. What was that experience like? How did that wellness, how that evolution happen in your life?
I tell people it was something about Kuwait. Um, and I say that specifically because while I was there, it was a piece that I hadn't encountered in a very, very long time. I don't know if it was because of like I said, the distance from, the hustle and bustle of the life I knew in the United States, going here and there and having to move around so much. I don't know if it was the fact that I had a chance to finally, yes, and again, sit still for a moment and just take some time to say, phew, one, that was exhausting, or phew, I can't believe I got through that, or phew, this is an experience that I have to take in. This is an experience that I have to relish. So my time there, I guess having the opportunities to pause and think about the things that I had already, you know, ventured through, the things that I had accomplished, the things that I knew that I wanted going forward, just having the opportunities to pause and not be caught up in all the day-to-day things that I was caught up with in the United States. And not that there's anything wrong with the United States, but it just gave me that separation. So the separation gave me the peace that I needed to kind of filter through some things in my life. And we all have things to filter through. And we've all been through some things. So it just gave me that opportunity. And Kuwait, again, it just, one, I think they don't have alcohol, so you can't go out and party. Well, I won't say they don't, but anyway, that's another topic. But they don't have alcohol. It's not readily available. It's just not a country you would go to party. So you basically are just going to enjoy whatever they have available and relax. So that's what that's what Kuwait did for me. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity, really grateful for that journey, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get started with some questions because we just got some questions. I have my whole list of questions, but I'm going to defer to my lovely viewers because I appreciate you guys watching. Um, Jewel, hey Jewel, and now we have Vanessa. Hey Vanessa, let me see if I can put it on the screen here. Let's get started. Vanessa, thank you so
Okay.
much for being here. If I'm working for a US company and living abroad, how should I be filing my taxes? Do I have to withhold anything when filing out my I 9? Does my U.S. company need to be aware I'm living abroad? Oh, it's a lot of questions. Okay.
All right, Vanessa, thank you for joining. So that great questions. All of those are great questions. So if you're living abroad and you're not contracted to live abroad with your company, which it sounds like, one thing, yes, you can notify them that you are living abroad if you need to, but if they don't need to know, it's not necessarily necessary for tax purposes. Um, when you say I-9, you might mean your W-9. I mean your W-4, I'm assuming, or your W-9. I'm not sure which. The I-9 is the identification information, which gives them, your birth information, your social security number, and all of those items. So I'm not sure if you're meaning I-9. But if you're meaning a W-4, which is the tax forms that go with them withholding the correct amount of taxes, then, with the new W-9 that the IRS has implemented within the past 3 years, they basically have that set up so that all you do is check one or two boxes. There are no dependents to worry about on that new form. So you're just basically telling them, yes, I work, and yes, I'm the only person, and then they will construct your taxes so that it's withholding at the proper rate, and they're withholding the proper amount. So as far going back to the first question, how should you be filing your taxes? One, you file annually. And then there are some forms that you should be filing for the foreign income exclusion so that you're able to offset your tax liability and reduce your taxes based on your earnings while you're living abroad. So I hope that answered your question.
All right, Vanessa, let us know if that answered your question. But that leads me to another question that I have, which is, let me look at my list of lots of questions that I have. Well, let's actually start at the very beginning. What tax residency preparations should aspiring expats consider before moving abroad? So a lot of times when people are moving abroad, they just think like, well, I guess sometimes Americans, they don't realize that America taxes on worldwide income. So it's like you can never
can't escape it.
Right?
Death and taxes.
But depending on what state they're in, they may still have state income taxes and they don't realize how, like, just leaving the country doesn't, you still have domicile. Like, it's hard to not be domiciled in the United States. So what are some things people should start thinking about if they're like, I'm moving abroad and I don't plan on coming back? Like, maybe they're not giving up their passport, but they're like, I'm moving abroad. What are some things tax-wise they should start thinking about?
Well, let's go to the misconception. One, there were some misconceptions that you weren't supposed to file a tax return or you did not have to file a tax return. So that has always been one of the biggest misconceptions. I'm outside of the United States. I'm no longer there. I don't have to file. Out of sight, out of mind. Not true. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. The other misconception is, like you said, regarding the states. There are some states that still require you to pay income tax, even if you don't have the same obligations with the federal government. So, California, I don't care where you are in the world, they want their money. Alabama, I don't care where you are in the world, they want their money. So those two misconceptions are probably the biggest. And even if you're outside of the country for 20 years, the U.S. government still expects you to comply with filing your taxes annually. So the problems that go along with not doing that is things happen in your life. You may have to come back home eventually after 20 years. So by not filing your taxes, you don't have any income reported. Sometimes it impacts your Social Security, and some people don't take that into play. And then there are some other issues when you come back if you want to use it for credit. You have no documentation to prove that you earned income, and they're not going to look at a foreign earned compensation worksheet and say, oh, yeah, you did make some money. None of those things will assist you with purchasing a home, buying a vehicle. So if you don't have those ducks in a row when you come back to the US, should you have to come back to the US, then you won't be able to participate in the credit markets in the United States. So those are some tips and the misconceptions that go along with them. So some advice, definitely file annually, like I stated. Make sure that whatever state that you're considered a resident of, that you file with that respective state as well. Most states in the United States offer you the same exclusions that you're offered in the on the federal tax side. And we can definitely share those states with you, once if we ever do any work for you, or you can Google it. Trust me, it's out there. And then also making sure that and there are some opportunities for some states where you won't have to pay taxes, even in Alabama or California, depending on how long you have been abroad. So there are a lot of little extra areas where you can kind of circumvent the tax laws in those states. But making sure that you file annually for me is just probably the biggest takeaway for you.
Definitely. So let's get into something that I've seen in a lot of expat forums. So for people who are like, I'm leaving the United States, maybe they're like, I'm retiring and I'm gonna die abroad and I'm gonna be buried abroad. I'm not coming back.
Okay.
They pay their taxes because they're retiring and they want to get that Social Security, and they decide to sell everything. Maybe maybe they're domiciled in Florida and they're like, or maybe Georgia, and they sell everything, and then they get a digital mailbox in like
Mhm.
Wyoming, or what else is one of those states people like, South Dakota, I think. Is that enough to set up? Can a digital mailbox set up domicile for you so that you can be to use as like as a tax residency? Does it work like that or no?
Generally, the way the states look at it is where is your banking set up?
Hmm.
What about your driver's license that you've had for years? Are you going to go to Wyoming and get a new driver's license? So it's not as simple as just having an address somewhere, because you can live in Georgia and have all your mail sent to your family in Florida while you're abroad. So it's not that simple. The other issue is if you own a home, or in this instance, you've sold everything, so there is no home sold. But in an instance where one has left and they've left for years, but they still have this home in Georgia, you're still considered a Georgia resident. So you have to really take all the steps necessary to show that you are moving, just like you would if you were living in the US. So I'm going to get another driver's license from another state. I'm going to, like you said, get the address in another state. I'm going to do all of these things. One, to limit my tax liability in a state that does have taxes, and to make sure that you can prove to the federal government that you are actually and, actively working towards being a resident of another state. But
Hmm.
you can't get away from not being a United States citizen. So you cannot get away from being a resident of a state in one of the 50 United States, So I tell people, for tax purposes, I understand you don't want to pay a certain tax in a certain state. I totally get that. But just be careful when you take those steps and make sure that you can prove that you did it for the right purpose and not just to get away from taxes.
Yeah, we don't need any shadiness or IRS
No,
anybody's door at
we don't
all.
like them. No, ma'am.
So let's get into something actually. Jewel, hey Jewel, if you're still on, we were in a clubhouse conversation yesterday, and I think she's in Ghana. I think Jewel. Sorry if I get it wrong. And she is, I think, embarking on an entrepreneurship journey. And
Okay.
not everybody who's abroad is an entrepreneur. People have, regular employment, either with a multinational American company or maybe a local company. But I want to speak specifically to entrepreneurs or people who consider themselves digital nomads because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there has been a lot of stuff in the news about taxes and tax residency. And one, there is this misconception that people have used around to like blanket the entire world, even though it's strange because like there's however many countries there are, there's that many tax jurisdictions. Like there's no one universal tax jurisdiction. But there's this misconception with some digital nomads that say, as long as I don't make money in this country, my customers are not in this country, then I don't gotta pay taxes in this country. Now I live in Spain, and Spain is not like that. They're like you're a tax resident if you live here for 183 days. And Spain will tax on worldwide income if you're a tax resident, but then there's treaties and things like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering, can you speak to why people, I don't know if you know why people think that they can't they shouldn't have to pay taxes in the countries that they live in, but do you have any stories of people or some advice to help these digital nomads not get taxed and deported and things like that?
Well, what is the saying? When in Rome, do what the Romans do. So if the Romans are paying taxes on any of the income that they're earning in Rome, then you, as a U.S. citizen, should be following the same rules that the Romans are following. The biggest problem is, and I'm using this, not as a derogatory remark, but it's ignorance of the law. And, as American citizens, we sometimes get the big head and we think we can do what we want to do when we go wherever we go. And that is not the case. There are laws in countries, every country, that you embark upon where you have to follow certain steps in order to become a business owner. Just like in the United States, we have to have a business license. We have to file our taxes annually. We have to pay taxes on business earnings in certain situations. So those same rules apply. So if you want to be a true entrepreneur, and I don't say just in other countries, even in the United States, one of my mottos is if you want to do business at the table, you can't do business under the table. Okay.
Mm.
So what that means is you have to follow the rules. So investigating, finding out exactly what you need to do to be an entrepreneur. I mean, we can have a side hustle if that's what you want to call it. But if you want to grow a true business, be it domestic or global, or worldwide, then you need to start investigating exactly what you need to do to be a business owner in that country. Otherwise, it's just a side hustle. And, of course, you can pad your pockets or do whatever you can, but can you bring the money back to the United States? So that's something else to consider. Is it in a bank account? Are you depositing these funds? And you can't do that if you're not following the rules and the laws of those states. I don't have any, well, I do have some experiences where people have done business with um, citizens of those countries and they were taken. Their money was taken because they didn't know how the rules worked. In Kuwait, you have to have a sponsor, and that sponsor has to have the bank account. Well, guess what? If all of that money is going into that bank account, who's to say that they can't take it and you're all out? They can't. You can't do anything about it. So unless you properly set up and establish those businesses abroad, to me, it's just a side hustle. The other part of it is if you're a digital nomad and you are operating a stateside business globally, well, then again, you have to follow the rules of, what we're supposed to follow in the US as a business owner. Business license, register with your state if you have an LLC or a corporation. So all of those steps you need to put into play when you're establishing your business. To me, location doesn't matter. No matter where you are, you need to do what you're supposed to do and follow the rules of that particular country.
Yes, 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 yes. I agree. I agree. I agree because I mean I have been out here doing my own thing and just researching and doing, having my own business. And I just feel like I know people don't want to pay taxes, but also
I
like I don't
know.
want to go to jail abroad or whatever. I don't want to have issues abroad is my thing.
Correct. I can manage it at home, but over here, it's a long ways for mama to come and put some money on your commissary. We don't want that.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so another question about being an entrepreneur abroad is, say someone has, they've been abroad for a while, they want to open up a business and have it registered in the US. Um, where should they register for the best tax I guess advantages if they are predominantly abroad? Should they do it in the same state that they're domiciled, or should they pick a new state?
Okay, so a lot of people, even in the United States for a long time, they would register a business in Nevada. And Nevada was a tax-free state. But again, people didn't really know the rules associated with it. And I believe that Nevada is now changing their laws because they're saying, hey, all these people have all of these businesses here, but they don't live here. I don't know if we're going to go for that because we're not getting any taxes on, those businesses. So my first rule of thumb is, again, I understand we don't want to pay taxes, but my first rule of thumb is I would always register in the state in which I'm domiciled. That's what I would do. That's what I would recommend, for one reason only, is if you ever go back to the US, you don't have to worry about all of the changes that you'll need to make to move your business, or if you have to register in your state anyway. That would be one reason. One reason I would advocate for you registering in your state of domicile. But again, people have registered in Nevada. If they don't think they're coming back, if they haven't claimed a state, which you live somewhere in the US. So that would be where I would suggest their place of domicile. And then that way too, if they have family members there and something comes up and you can't do everything online, which we're getting there very close to it. But if you can't, then you have someone there that can help you, work through any issues you may have back in the United States.
All right. Hey, for everyone who has been watching, thank you so much. But keep the questions coming because I'm just going to ask all the questions I have, if not. So if that's what y'all want to watch, then y'all can do that. But if you have questions, go ahead and put it in the comments and we will get to them. But Tanya, I do have another question because for my own personal reasons, I'm thinking about scaling my team, and I have been doing a lot of research about, not getting caught up between, having a contractor, but if you have a contractor that does things over and over again, certain with a certain amount of hours, and they're basically an employee, and you need to have them as an employee. What's your advice for managing that? Like, I'm abroad, I have a US registered business, and my team is mostly abroad. These are people who live abroad. They may be US nationals and they may not. How would you recommend an entrepreneur handle those kind of tax things that have to happen?
So there is a clear, well, let's see, nothing's very clear with the IRS. So let me go back and rephrase that. They do have rules that they have in place to help you determine whether or not an individual is an employee or a contractor. So one thing they say is, do you dictate everything they do from the beginning to the end? You know, all of the jobs that they perform, do you dictate those? Are you in total control of their processes? So that would be one way. The other the other option is, well, the other indicator is whether or not you dictate their time. You know, so now the processes are dictated, but their time. Do you have to show up from 8:30 to 5 o'clock every day to perform your task? Okay. And then also, can they handle their tasks on their own without you having to direct everything that they're doing? Do they have their own tools? Do they have their own computer? Do they have their own laptops? Do you supply or furnish any of those items? So those are three clear indicators that you have an employee if you control all of those functions, their time, you know, the processes, and you provide all of their equipment. So I'm going to consider them your employee. Otherwise, they're a contractor, and you provide them with the necessary tax documents at the end of the year to show that they are performing services on their own, just like you would with the W-2. And you would register, you'd have to pay all of their taxes if they're your employee, the Medicare, Social Security, and, you know, federal unemployment taxes and state unemployment taxes, and withhold taxes from their W-2. I mean, it's a very long process if you're going to have employees, and even if they're foreign nationals, they don't receive a W-2, but you do have to report their income.
Oh my goodness. That sounds stressful. I'm gonna talk to you later about that. But okay.
Don't stress out yet. It sounds like you have contractors for now. Let's just let them pay their own taxes.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Don't stress. Don't stress.
Let's get into something that is quite mysterious for some people, and gives a lot of heart palpitations and makes people curse. FATCA and FBAR. What are these things and why are they important?
So prior to 2011, people were working abroad, earning foreign earned income, not filing their taxes, and if they had enough income to that was more than the foreign income exclusion, they weren't paying the taxes associated with it. And actually, it wasn't those people. It was people that were having offshore income, millions and billions of dollars. You know, not us little people. You know, those that had plenty of money, and they were storing their funds offshore outside of the United States. And those countries were gladly, you know, hey, you can put your money in my bank. I don't mind. I can earn all the interest in the world. And so what the IRS and the federal government decided to do was they cracked down on those people. Well, the rest of us get caught up in all of that. So now, and the purpose of it is, I call it a marriage. They marry your taxes with these foreign bank accounts. So if you have $1 million in a foreign bank account, and one, A, we don't have a tax return, how is that possible? Or two, you're only reporting $50,000 a year, how is that possible? So all of those connections, they tie together, and that's what FATCA is all about. So the Foreign Bank Account Reporting Act, which is FBAR, the Foreign Bank Account Reporting Act, requires you to report any income over $10,000 in total on any given day in your bank accounts abroad. So now you have this Foreign Bank Account Reporting Act that you're responsible for. You have $50,000 in your account. How did it get there? So now you need to file this tax return that kind of helps the US government understand, oh, okay, she worked abroad for a certain amount of time. I can see how she could build up X number of dollars in this foreign bank account over time. So that's basically what it is. If you don't have over $10,000, and this is in aggregate, so if you have 5 bank accounts and they all have about $10,000 or more, then you're required to report all. If you have one bank account that only has $10,000 or more, you're required to report all 5. So that's what that's all about, since 2011, and it has actually made people file tax returns, because now the federal government and all of these other countries, they are in cahoots. So they're actually reporting what you have in these bank accounts, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. I think back in 2018, a lot of the countries started making you complete a W-9. I don't know if anyone has had to do that with their bank account in their country, but I know in Kuwait in 2000, no, it was 16 or 17, they started making you complete a W-9. Well, you know what a W-9 for is only for the United States. So they report what you have in your bank account. And that's why it's very important to file the tax returns and make sure you file your FBAR. FBARs are due, they give you an automatic extension. They're due by October.
It is it's not a headache, but what I found is that there are some banks that don't want to deal with Americans because of this. And they won't let Americans open up bank accounts. And so that is always, I always hear, expats grumble and complain about that. And I'm always like,
well, once upon a time, they weren't complaining because they would let you put your money in that account and earn interest on it and all of that good stuff. But now that, they have to report what's in their own bank accounts, that's the problem.
All right, so we have some questions, but I want to get your professional opinion on this because, you go abroad, you see how other institutions handle taxes. A lot of countries that I have personal experience with and I've interviewed, they just give their citizens a tax bill and they just pay it. Why in the United States do we have to guess? They already know if we're wrong. Mm-hmm. Then we get fined if we're wrong. Just give me a tax bill. Why? Why is this?
I wish I had an answer for you on that one, Christine, and I'm in this space, and of course, me being in this space, we don't want that whole scenario to go away because, of course, that would take away from jobs and careers and what have you. But, from the consumer side and being a taxpayer myself, I agree there can be an easier way to handle this whole scenario. But the problem is, I think, and it's not, again, us little people, is that if you implement a simple tax program in the United States, then it's probably going to affect those that have more earnings than we do. It's going to impact them more than it might impact us, middle class or upper middle class citizens. So I don't know. I think they've talked about it quite a bit in this space. Congress has even talked and pulled bills together to have a simple tax, but it just hasn't passed. And not quite sure if we're really ready for that or if the powers that be are ready for
it. Because that's the thing about going abroad. You go abroad, you see how other people do, and you're like, wait a minute. I thought you said we're number one. We can do everything best. Like, what is this all about?
I think we have a bunch of misconceptions about the United States as we travel abroad. So
that's how it goes. You're like, I think I've been hoodwinked. I think I've been hoodwinked. All right, so let's get into these questions. Here we go with Vanessa. Vanessa says, I'm planning to move to Mexico for 3 months this year and then some other countries in Southeast Asia. Do I need to file in those countries as well?
Now, each country is different, of course. As a digital nomad, which it sounds like it's what you are, you're able to, your job allows you or affords you the opportunity to travel. And you're not restricted to the United States. So I can't give you a specific answer because, you're going to Mexico, you're going to other Southeast Asian countries. But what I will tell you is those opportunities will afford you the opportunity to qualify for the foreign income exclusion in the United States. Now, if those countries will make you pay taxes or file in those countries, I would do a little research if I were you, just to make sure that you don't have any tax consequence. My first answer would be no. But again, there may be a tax for you living in their country, working in their country. That's something you definitely want to take a look at. But again, my first answer would be no for those short time periods.
All right. And then what was this next one? Let's see. Oh, she said, if so, how do I get info on each country's taxes? Where can she get this information?
I can send you a couple of links to get. I'll send it to Christine and she can share it with you, that you could possibly get this information from.
All right. Yeah, I think, there's however like 200, almost 200 countries in the world. So that's at least over like 200 tax jurisdictions. Everybody has a different amount of time or different types of requirements that make you a
Yes.
tax resident. Again, it is a huge misconception that just because you do not make, you're not earning on the local economy, doesn't mean that you
Right.
owe the local. Like, so don't do that because people get in
Right.
trouble. And I guess if you're gonna do it on the low. Don't tell anybody about it. That's all I can say. But it's a misconception that a lot of people just like run with, or everyone goes with like, what's 180 days? And it's 180 days for some places, but maybe not every place. So definitely look into it. I would say maybe even, I don't know, the consulate or something. But yeah, definitely do your research, Vanessa, because you don't want to have no problems. And I will also say, make sure that the places that you go, that you're on the appropriate visa. If they have a digital nomad, go. Well, you go ahead, Tanya. You tell them.
No, I was just going to chime in and say that's exactly what I was going to say next. Check the visa that you're applying for, before you go or before you register for it. And I think that might help you. So if you're going, I didn't know that they had a digital nomad visa. So if they do, then there may be a tax associated with that. And then you will probably just pay it then when you apply for it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot more countries, especially in Southeast Asia, are getting hip to it. They're getting a little tired of some of these digital nomads. Not you, Vanessa, but some other people, because they be acting up. And they're like, okay, you want to live here? Here's a digital nomad visa, which I think is fair because, people go there and they, engage in geo arbitrage, and there are some detrimental effects of engaging in geo arbitrage in Southeast Asia or in anywhere in the global South or anywhere that has a quote unquote weak or whatever economy, if you were coming from, a more stable currency or whatever. So, if there's digital nomad visa, I say pick it up. And you probably won't have no problems because they're going to make you pay up front and you that's all right. And they'll make sure you have probably some insurance too, which is important as well.
Yes, very important.
Okay, let us get to the next question that I have. Yeah, let's get into what kind of advice can you give us so that we can properly vet tax professionals for our needs? Because for those of you who are watching either now or in replay, if you've been an expat, you know this to be true. But if you haven't been an expat, what happens is you go abroad and you're a foreigner and you get a big bullseye on top of you, and everybody is like, oh, you need to file this paper that you can file for free. Give me $100 and I will do it for you. Everybody becomes a expat helper, guide, expert. It is incredible. So how do we protect ourselves, and how do we vet proper professionals, proper tax professionals?
That's a great question. And I always tell my clients, especially say, for instance, we have a client moving from one preparer to another. Not every preparer is, we're not a one size fits all. Everybody has certain needs. And so what you should do in order to vet your preparer is interview them. You know, talk to them, ask them the questions specific to your needs. And if they can answer them and you're comfortable with them answering those questions, then you've got your person. I mean, of course, we're the ones that you're going to go to anyway. I'm just kidding. But definitely ask all the questions. You know, what are you looking for from that preparer? Do you need someone that's there constantly that can answer the questions, you know, day in and day out and night and day, and you know, you need your hand held every step of the way? Or is that the type of person you need? Or do you want someone that just wants to come in, you want them to prepare your return, answer your questions here and there, and then you're done and you see them next year? What are your goals with the preparer? Are you looking for just the tax preparer, or are you looking for a tax accountant that can help you with planning, futuristic planning, not just while you're abroad, but hey, I'm planning to go home in a couple of years. What strategies do I need to take or use to offset my taxes right before I go home? Are you looking for someone that can also help you with financial advisement? So there are a wealth of questions that you need to ask to vet this person in order to determine whether or not they're the best fit for you. Um, Time frame. I'm only going to be over here for a couple of years, so I just need you to do this, that, and the other. Okay, well, we can do that. So make sure that you have a clear goal in mind as to who you want, how you want to utilize your preparer, and then specifically ask those questions. If they can answer them, you're in a good space. Make sure that they have experience, because again, like you said, everybody can jump on TurboTax and they can click a couple of boxes and they can enter some information, but garbage in, garbage out. Or do you understand what's coming out, or do you even care? If you don't care, then you're going to let that person prepare your taxes. If you want someone that understands and has experience and has, worked in that space for quite some time, then that's, a better choice for you. But just make sure you know what your goals are, and also, can you work with that person? Are they going to, every time you ask a question, are they going to have an attitude with you? You're like, wait a minute, I just asked a question. All I want to know is, this question, you answer this for me. So just make sure that, they're the right fit for you. Interview them just like you would have a job interview. You should be interviewing your accountant in the same manner.
Yes, 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 yes. So, so important because y'all know, Tanya knows, but you go abroad and everybody there's a service for an expat. It just has expat whatever it is, expat dry cleaning, and it's always like 5 times more. It's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy phenomenon. So we're almost at the very end of our hour. So if you have any questions, hurry up and get them in. Get them in right now. I want to ask you a really quick question because it just came to me. And the question is about cryptocurrency and how we should be managing, and how do we manage or declare our crypto? And also, is there capital gains tax on cryptocurrency? How does that work?
So cryptocurrency is just like a stock,
Okay.
and with stocks, there is no transaction until it's sold for tax purposes. So once you purchase, there's no transaction. While you're holding it, there's no transaction. While it's increasing in value, there is no transaction. But once you sell that or use it as in an exchange for something else,
Wow.
then because now you've sold it, you
For
have sold.
services. So when you exchange for services, people say, oh, I'm going to pay you in crypto. That's taxed.
Well, now you're selling your crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there should be some type of taxable event associated with it. And it's interesting because now that is a specific question on your tax return. Have you engaged in buying, selling, holding any type of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, any of those transactions? And that is a specific question on the tax return. So now not only that doesn't affect whether or not you've sold it, but they just want to know, have you engaged? So now they know, okay, now we can monitor the activity of any cryptocurrency you purchase or sell or hold or buy. So definitely once you sell it, you have what you call your basis, which is what you originally purchased it for. And then once you sell it, there's your sales price. So the difference between the two, that is what you could potentially pay capital gains for if it's at a profit. If it's at a loss, of course, there's none. I can't hear
Okay, so
you.
now I have another
Okay. Okay.
question. So y'all did not ask
Yeah.
any questions, so I'm okay. So if we purchase a property abroad, two scenarios. We purchase a property abroad, we sell it. That's going to have capital gains or
That's
some,
a
right?
that's a taxable event. But guess what? If it's your personal residence and you've held it for 3 or more years, then you are due an exclusion from the federal government up to $250,000 if you're single, up to $500,000 if you're married, and there could potentially be no tax consequence as long as it is your personal residence.
But if it's an Airbnb and we have that rental income, then it's taxed like any other kind of rental income, right?
It's taxed just like it was a stock. It's a capital gain on that tax. And then rental income, you're supposed to report because where's this income going? Is it going into your bank account or is it going in your pocket? So, and it's hard to take home more than $10,000 because you have to declare anything more than $10,000 that you take home in cash. And home is the US.
And we definitely
So,
want to declare everyone because what are you gonna y'all gonna be having shoe boxes of cash around you?
yeah, listen, it happens. It happens. And so again, now they're wondering, where did you get $50,000 from while you were overseas? I mean, I don't even see a tax return for you. What's going on? What were you doing? So it's very important to just, I'm not a big proponent of paying taxes myself. I mean, our goal is to always reduce your tax liability as best we can. Okay. But I can't reduce what I don't know about. I can't help you, reduce what we don't know about. So when I have conversations with my clients, it's always just between the two of us. We're in a closed room or on this closed telephone line. What you tell me, I am not at liberty to share. But at the same time, I don't look good in a orange jumpsuit, and neither do you with a number under your chin. So we're going to work very hard to do what's right so that you can safely, and legally reduce your taxable income so that you don't have to pay as much taxes on this income that you've earned. A lot of times you may not even owe any taxes, but if you don't report it, you don't know.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Tanya.
You're welcome.
I got so many more questions, but I'm gonna book some time with you. So tell us all about your services again and where we can find you.
Okay, we provide, I just purchased another practice last year, so I'm really excited about that in the United States.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But for Expat Tax Solutions, we provide business consulting, income tax preparation. We prepare business returns. We assist you with any area and any aspect of taxes, even tax resolution. You have back taxes that you haven't filed or that you owe on, and you want to get that situation rectified, then we can assist you with that. I am an enrolled agent. I am admitted to practice before the IRS. I don't work for the IRS at all. I work for the taxpayer. And if you have any issues regarding your taxes, we can help you fix it. And one other thing I want to just leave with you all and your viewers, Christine, and I know we're running out of time, but there are two things that are really going to, we're really going to work towards this year. One is uh, retirement,
Mm,
because living abroad has its own issues, especially if you're working for a foreign employer and that foreign employer doesn't have a retirement plan.
yeah.
So it's great to live abroad, earn all this income, and we want to travel as much as we can, but we have to think about the end game once we come home or if we decide to stay abroad. So spending all of your money abroad is not a good idea. And when you're younger, you kind of, do a little bit things a little bit more risky. But as you start to age and you start thinking about, okay, what am I going to do at the end? So that's one thing that we're big on this year. The other thing is, it's kind of a twofold thing, and it has nothing to do with taxes. But what happens if something happens while you're abroad? Your family can't fly over. We've seen several instances on a lot of different forums where people had problems, health issues, and they couldn't get home. So that, and a life insurance policy, and how does your family know where all of this documentation is while you're abroad? So for us, and this is part of your wellness, to me, having your life in order, because things are different. Grandma isn't next door, mama's not in the next state over. Having things in order while you're there so that someone could say, okay, I know where her paperwork was, I know where her will was, I know where all of these documents were if something should happen. So those are some things, and those are totally outside of taxes, but it's very important because it's real. So we're putting together some things to help our clients with, I'm calling it leaving your legacy, or what happens if something happens, which is bound to happen at some point. So thank you very much. I
Thank
really appreciate you and the viewers. I hope we have provided some really good information and insight. And if you ever want to look for us, we're at expattaxsolutions.com. We do have a Facebook page. We have a website, and all of our contact information is on both of those areas. So please feel free to reach out, ask questions, and we would love to work with you. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Tanya. You have been such a wealth of information. Y'all, you need to go ahead and hit up Tanya and get yourself right. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not even going to know about it. So y'all know what you need to do. Go ahead and get yourself right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this chat. I deeply, deeply appreciate y'all. Again, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that right now. Thank you very much. Give video a like. And if you haven't checked out the podcast, I don't know what y'all doing. Go ahead and check out Flourish in the Foreign. You can check out new episodes at www.flourishintheforeign.com/episodes. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think about it. Leave me a review. I love the reviews. Check out the podcast on Instagram and follow the Instagram page. I appreciate that as well. So, thank you guys so, so much. Until next time, be well and remember, go abroad and cultivate a life well lived. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Christine. Thank you, viewers.